Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our 9th episode of our Fireside Chats. I'm Tim Hollick, and with me, as usual, is my good friend Joe Zinni.
Number 9.
Number 9, do you
It's
believe
amazing.
that?
Yeah, we've done a lot,
We have.
and it feels good to do that. I think it's great that we've gotten a lot of these going. Each topic, I think, will help folks understand different pieces. We've covered quite a few now. Today, we're going to talk about life's obstacles. And there's different kinds. There's short-term, long-term. We were just talking about like somebody getting a cold, or not having enough money to get to the end of the month. You know it's going to go away. You just need to find that peace, get that peace of mind, and tell yourself you're going to get through it and you're going to do it. We're also talking about long-term stuff, health issues, the death of a loved one, loss of a job, catastrophe at home. You lose your home in a fire. Something that's going to take a lot of time to get through.
Right.
So there's the short-term ones, which you and I just talked about.
Yeah, we all have those.
We all have those.
We have them consistently.
You gotta look past that
Yeah.
and say, okay, it's gonna end.
Yeah.
It's gonna end soon. Yeah, it's not gonna be tomorrow, but we can see the ends to the means. Talk about that real quick. How is it that you can focus on a short-term life obstacle?
Short or long?
Short for now.
Short term. Well, short term basically is, like you said, it's minor things. You didn't have enough money to pay this week. You're sick, you have a cold, you have the flu.
Yep.
I always tell myself at that point that I always have to look past that vision of what's in front of you. It's like football. I like to use the analogy of football. When I played, I was a running back and I was a linebacker on defense.
Yep.
So when you'd sit there before the snap went on the other side for the offense, I didn't picture myself the person in front of me. I always pictured past that where I was going.
Sure.
I needed to get to the quarterback. I needed to tackle the fullback, the halfback. I always looked at that. So when you have that in your mind, you're always looking ahead. And believe it or not, that programs your body.
Yes.
You know how to get by those people. You could push them. You could, go around them. You do things unconsciously, and it's the same thing with an obstacle like that. You can't let it get it down. People get down. As soon as they get down, everything comes down, and what's not working anymore? Your mind.
Right.
Your mind is your most creative muscle in your body.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is.
It's quite a tool.
It really is quite a tool, and it's a program in there. You have to program it. So, I've been sick, and it was more long-term sickness when I found out in '84 I had chronic fatigue syndrome, and that's what they called it.
Yep.
All I know, I was exhausted all the time. Wake up in the middle of the night more exhausted than when I went to bed,
Right.
because we eventually found out 15, 16 years later that it was all about sleep apnea.
Right.
And what's happening when you stop breathing during your sleep, your oxygen levels come down, and that's time in your body. You're not going into a REM sleep. So I went on 15, 16 years. Were there times in the middle of the night in the dark that I'd wake up exhausted and think about bad things? Of course you do. We're human beings. You're going to have those times. But again, what did I do when I got up in the morning? I kept looking ahead. I will be better someday. I know someday I'm going to be running again and exercising, biking or hiking. I always think beyond what's in front of me. And it's not, nobody likes having that obstacle in front of them.
No.
I don't either.
No.
But I've always had the ability for my mind to program itself to try to get beyond it. And you do think of things, and your mind's programmed that way. You will think of things, or you will do something with your body, like I say in football, to get yourself around that person. And that's what I've learned in time.
And it's funny you brought it up. You kind of segued into the long term, but your short term remedy wins those small battles.
That's right.
It enables you to then look at things like the second part here we're going to talk about is the long term life obstacles.
Right.
You talked about, and I knew this way back when we were kids, the death of your dad, which was very influential on who you were. I mean, a lot of people at that point, it stops them. They take a different road. We talked about your illness. Short term, you got a cold. Long term, you've got an illness that took you 16 years to get answers to. That's a long time.
It was.
So
mentally exhausting.
You have to process it a little differently, but your goals are basically the same.
You're right. You don't let go of the goals. That's a great point, Joe. I like that you said that, because in your mind, whether it's a short-term goal or long-term goal, you have to know where you're going. What do you want? I wanted to have a successful business.
Yes,
you know. But I've had short-term illnesses. I've had things that have lasted a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and it's the same thought process. You can't change what it is. That's the one thing. That's something
no control over
beyond.
that. That's
Exactly,
right.
it's beyond your control. So, first is if you have a sickness, whether you have the flu, bronchitis. I was sick one time with bronchitis for 2 to 3 weeks. Because like a fool, when I got it the first time, I took the antibiotics, but I worked every day.
Yeah.
I got rid of it. Within a week, it came back 10 times worse. It floored me. It got to a point I could barely get up from the couch on my bed to go in the bathroom. It was that debilitating. It was that exhausted because I got it bad. I was on my road to pneumonia at that point. So you have to, same thing, but you got to get your rest.
Yes,
Rest is a big thing to a short term.
It is.
You know, you just got to accept it. Sleep as much as you can.
That's right.
And get through it. You know, and that's, you know, whether it's painful or stressful or whatever it is, you know, it could be a stress thing. Like I said, something happens bad where you lost your job.
Right.
You know?
That's a long term.
That is long term, you're right. That would be more long term.
It's a long term because it's going to take longer. Well, in some cases, it's going to take longer than a couple of weeks. It could take you 6-8 months.
You're right, it's true.
But you still need to have that focus.
That's right.
Don't ever give up on that daily focus.
Right.
Because again, we go back to you're going to set your goals up.
Right.
Even if it's one day at a time, for a long-term situation. We all know that I've been sick. I've been sick for a long time.
Yeah.
For the longest time, it was easy for me to battle through it. As I got later in life, it gets a little more difficult. When you look at the health issues you had in '84, got all through that. Fortunately, you were young enough, strong enough that even though it was a battle, you got to the late '90s. Billy Levy said, "Hey, I saw this thing. Check this out."
Saw it on TV about sleep apnea.
Yeah.
And you were just saying it actually was the late 80s, early 90s, but it wasn't talked about out there.
No, there wasn't enough
until
exposure.
it was on 2020 or 60 Minutes, one of those type of things. And I found out about it, and that's when they were calling it, you know, they figured out it was sleep apnea.
Yeah, which is totally different than chronic fatigue because there's a reason behind that.
There's a reason why you're chronically fatigued.
And
you're not sleeping.
And there's a remedy for it, and you've done that.
I had the operation, I was good for 9 months, it came back. Now I can wear the mask.
Yeah.
That gets me my sleep at night. Do I sleep as good as most people? No, probably. I still, you know, don't wake up completely, but I always have something on my mind when I wake up.
But look at where you
I
were
got
in the
things to
80s.
do. Yeah, a lot better than
You were
that.
fighting it. Now you're not fighting it. Now you're just working with it.
You're working with it,
Absolutely.
and you work your way through it. Sometimes you do take the mask off at night unconsciously,
Yep.
and you wake up exhausted.
That's a short obstacle.
It's a short obstacle compared to the 16 years, like
Yeah.
we said.
Yeah.
You know, but long term, it's the same thing. It can wear on your mind a little bit more because it's so long.
Yes, it is.
There's no doubt.
Yes,
I'm
it
not going to say that I never felt bad about myself.
You did.
Or
You
wanted
talked
to
about
quit. I mean, believe me, I wanted to quit.
I know you did.
And it came to a point sometimes with this problem, and my doctor told me when I confessed to it, because I felt guilty about it, that I'd wake up sometimes at 2 in the morning and thought about killing myself.
Right.
She says it's very normal because your mind is so tired
Weak.
and weak
Yeah.
that you start thinking. I said, I don't think I ever would, but did you think about it? Yeah.
Okay.
So you get in those situations, but you know what kept me going? Looking beyond.
Looking beyond.
I had a business. I was in the beginning part of the business in '84. So that's the toughest times. You have to work 110% every day. So I always had something to think about that I needed to get done. So that got me up. I know you've dealt with fibromyalgia and stuff like that, but it got you still got up and did. It's a lot of pain. I get some form of fibromyalgia from the chronic fatigue too, which is really sleep apnea, but it is chronic fatigue.
Yeah.
You got to get by. I mean, I have aches and pains in my knees every day,
Right.
in my elbows.
Yeah.
It's all from football,
Age.
from injuries. It's age, exactly.
It's doing what we did to get where we are, and it's taking its toll.
It does, but you get beyond it. You can't think about it. You can't dwell. But as soon as you dwell on it, the mind shuts down, and you think of one thing. he almost lost his business because of a bookkeeper back in the early 90s. And, you know, the best advice I ever had was from my lawyer, who said, you know, did that person have any money? I said, no. Do you have any money? No. Then go on.
Right.
It's a learning experience.
But
just move on. Let it go.
There's the thing again, you talk about the most important thing, you keep saying, move on, go on. If you stop and stay there, we go back to the stagnant thing.
Yeah. You're back to stagnancy.
You're back to
Exactly.
stagnant.
You're not going anywhere at that point,
No.
because you are dwelling and it's quicksand.
Yes, it
You're
is.
sinking.
Yeah.
And the body gets weaker and weaker, and the mind gets weaker and weaker. And you cannot let your mind get weak. That's where most people have problems.
They do.
It's just, let's talk about weakness of mind when it comes to a goal and somebody wants to do something, but they don't. That's a weakness.
They're holding themselves back.
They're holding themselves back because their mind's not programmed to keep thinking ahead. Nobody wants to think ahead. They know what they want, but their mind's not thinking ahead enough to get them to go there.
Yeah.
And again, back to the football thing. I knew where I wanted to go, and I was going to get there anyway.
That's one of my favorite analogies that you and I have talked about.
Yeah.
And I remember talking, and we weren't really talking anything in specific. I think you were just talking about the boys, your grandsons.
You're right,
and
it was.
I wasn't looking at this person. I've already got by them. I need to find a way of getting by the next person.
That's right, because I
So
told
go
Jack
past
that.
Go past your first obstacle.
That's right. When I was teaching them defense, and just don't even think of the person in front of you.
Right.
Think of where you're going.
Right.
Because your body and your mind will figure something out. And it's almost like you go into another state.
Right. You
That's
do.
all I can say.
Right.
Football was a great sport, loved it, lived and breathed it back then. But, you know, when it comes to the business world or your work and home life, you have to get around. Now, you had said long-term also is losing a job. Now, most people, what happens is they're so married to having a job.
Yes.
But me and you are two different type of, same type of people, think totally different. Now, you've lost jobs before.
I have.
I've been slow in my business because I've owned a business most of my adult life.
Right.
But I have been laid off from jobs before that.
Yeah.
I didn't think about, I don't have a job. I thought about something I could do until I had a new job.
That's what I did.
You know, you made things, you said.
That's exactly
what
what
did
I
you
did.
say you made that time?
I made some
Picnic
furniture,
table?
and I brought in furniture and
Furniture.
did some stripping of it, refurnished, built a bed for a friend of mine, did other things, called up people and said, what can I do to get to work?
That's right.
It was just outside stuff. It's a drive that you have inside, not settling for, hey, it'd be easy for me to settle now just to live on my disability. But I didn't want to do that. I came to you and said,
That's right.
I still have something inside. I want to be able to give it.
You want to
What can I do?
contribute.
And that's what
Exactly.
we're doing here.
And we know that you're in pain some days from your problems and stuff like that with your body. But you seem to get by it. And one thing I've always liked to said, you know, I came here, I wasn't feeling good, but when I came here, I started to feel better because I'm thinking.
I got something done.
Back to the mind again.
Accomplishment.
Because what it is, the mind is relieving whatever you're going through.
Yes, it is.
But you had the ability to say, I'm going to do it myself until I find a job. Not many people have that,
No.
because if you decided that you don't have a job and you dwell on that, what would happen?
You're depressed.
Exactly.
And you stop. Your brain just stops functioning. It doesn't want to think about what's beyond the first obstacle, let alone the next two. It stops. So now you're not getting any traction. And that's so important, to keep your traction going. Whether you stop and look at anything, keep your traction going.
Yep.
Because you still got the obstacle. You need to find a way of getting through it or around it. I find it's easy to go around something than through things anymore. Because
Yeah, we don't have the energy to
I don't
go
have
through
the
it
energy to
anymore.
go
We
through it.
think smarter at an older
Absolutely.
age. And you have to. Physically, our abilities are less. I mean, we're older now. I mean, we're 60 years old.
Right.
It's not to say we can't do something, but we
It
find we
limits-
don't want to.
It limits compared to what we could do before.
Yeah.
So use your brains. My father always said, work smarter, not harder. It took me a while to get that under my belt. I'm sure it took you a while. I'm sure your dad said to you, I don't want you to be like me, I want you to be better than that. You find a way of doing that.
My dad was a hard worker.
He
He
was a
owned
hard
his own business. He did other things to make money.
Right.
You know, but you're right. When he died, I was 13 years old. He was 48 years old. I could have quit right then and there. I could have said, woe is me. You know, but, you know, my mother didn't quit. She went on. She had 3 little kids left in the
Right.
house because my older brother and sister were already married. And she went back to work, which she hadn't worked from, since before she was married.
Yeah.
Because my father was the old school.
Right.
You don't work, I do.
Yeah. He's the provider.
He was the provider. And she was home with us kids. And I'm thankful for that. And I was thankful for my mother and what she had. But I was already programmed who I am already. I believe that because I was like that as a kid. And you can't dwell on the fact it could be a wife, it could be a husband, it could be a kid. I don't know how it would if my daughter died. That's something I don't even know. I can't even. I probably would be down for a long time. That's deep. But your spouse, you can't remember what was. You have to look beyond that. You got to be what's going to be because your life's changed.
And now
you're not doing anything about it.
You still have to go on.
You have to.
You still have to go on.
So you have to look forward and say, okay, my life is going to be this now. Yeah. I'm not going to have this person. My mother did that. It was an amazing thing to grow up with. Did I learn as much about it then? No, but looking back at it, I've learned a lot about that.
And I think internally you did know it because I remember from years ago, way back when this was really first hit you, you always had the drive. You always find a way to find in that drive. And I think that's important. That's part of getting through your obstacles is having the drive to get by that.
Right.
Find your goals, find the drive, and work it because you don't want to be stagnant.
Right, exactly. But no matter what, you got to keep your mind going. Your mind is what fuels and runs your body.
It does.
And if you can keep doing that to yourself, you'll see what I'm talking about, but you can't quit. We all want to quit some days. Believe me, when that bookkeeper wasn't paying stuff and concealing it, especially taxes, payroll taxes, it was draining.
Yeah.
When the IRSs and the state tax people are coming after you. But I still, like the lawyer said, let it go and move on. I did. I just thought about, okay, what do I need to do to make a certain amount of money? And that's what drives our spirit, is to have that goal set in front of you. And it's enough to drive you forward and think of things that you need to do. I mean, I worked 7 days a week during those times.
I remember that.
And the seventh day was not work. It was here working, but I made things for our shop because we had the woodworking shop. We made cabinets back then. I'd make things that go faster. I'd design areas where things went quicker so we made more money. See what my mind was doing?
Yep.
It was always thinking ahead. Believe me, I licked my wounds many times. I would sometimes wake up in the middle of the night thinking, oh my God, am I ever going to get through this, blah, blah, blah. And I'll admit, I used to go home sometimes so stressed out, I'd cry to my wife and just say, I can't take this no more. But sometimes you need to do that. It's like a valve.
It is.
It lets that
You gotta let
steam
that pressure
out.
You gotta let the pressure out or it'll build up.
And all of a sudden, your mind starts thinking.
And look where you are today.
Yeah?
It wasn't easy, but you're here today.
Yep.
40 years this year, folks. 40 years of man's been in business. I think he's done it right. That's why we bring you these weekly little synopsises on what life's all about. And if you're catching on to it, it's about keeping going and taking responsibility. We took responsibility.
That's right.
And I think that's important. Take your own responsibility. Make it yours and take care of it.
That's right. Keep your mind going.
Absolutely.
Great time again?
It was. Wonderful. Thank you very much. We'll have a new subject for you next week. Tim, as always, I appreciate your time.
Thanks. Same here. See you next week.